Hello and welcome. This is assignment 2 of the heat transfer with the course code CHPC 204, and this will be presented by me, Vinit Kumar Mishra, to Dr. Sasikant Yadav, Assistant Professor, Department of Chemical Engineering, NIT Jalandhar. So let's start. So first of all, what are the objectives of this particular video assignment? So there are various topics which I'll be discussing one by one each, and these topics are like, first is the thermal boundary layer. In this I'll be discussing what actually the thermal boundary layer is, how it forms with the help of a diagram also. The next one is the dimensional analysis. Here we will see what is the dimensional analysis, why we use it, what is the application of dimensional analysis, and what are the different methods of dimensional analysis also. The next one is the Buckingham pi theorem. So it is again a method of dimensional analysis. We will see in detail what Buckingham pi theorem is, what is its advantage, disadvantage, and also an example problem based on the Buckingham pi theorem to make our concepts clear. Next is the dimensionless groups. Like in the dimensional analysis, we always try to reduce number of variables, and we try to reduce in dimensionless variables. So what are these dimensionless groups we will see, and different dimensionless numbers also we will see here. Next, heat transfer correlations for internal and external flows, and next is the different types of flows like laminar and turbulent flows, and heat transfer correlation for free convection. Next is the free convection from flat surfaces, and last we'll see free convection from a cylinder. So these are the various topics which I'll be discussing one by one here. So the very first topic is the thermal boundary layer. Thermal boundary layer. Now, when it develops, like a thermal boundary layer develops when a fluid at a specified temperature flows over a surface that is at a different temperature. Again, a thermal boundary layer develops when a fluid at a specified temperature flows over a surface that is at a different temperature. Here you can see in this picture also, in this diagram also, a thermal boundary layer on a flat plate is shown here, and here the fluid is hotter than the plate surface, of course. More about thermal boundary layer. In thermal boundary layer, like the flow region over the surface in which the temperature variation in the direction normal to the surface is significant. So this is thermal boundary layer. The thickness of the thermal boundary layer, which is delta T, and at any location along the surface it is defined as the distance from the surface at which the temperature difference T minus Ts equals 0.99 T infinity minus Ts. The thickness of thermal boundary layer increases in the flow direction, which is again a very important point. The thickness of thermal boundary layer increases in the flow direction, and since the effects of heat transfer are felt at greater distances from the surface further downstream. So this is the reason. Next is the shape of the temperature profile in the thermal boundary layer dictates the convection heat transfer. So what the temperature profile in the thermal boundary layer dictates? It dictates the convection heat transfer between a solid surface and the fluid flowing over it. So temperature profile of the, like this temperature profile dictates the convection between solid surface and the fluid flowing over it. So this is all about thermal boundary layer. Let's move on to the next topic, which is dimensional analysis. The very first question arises, what is the objective of dimensional analysis? Why we want to study this? So the object of dimensional analysis is to reduce the number of parameters in a problem. What is the objective? We always try to reduce the number of parameters in a problem. Why we do so? For ease of calculation and for the experimental economy. And it also follows that the best analysis will produce the minimum number of non-dimensional groups. And as these groups have physical significance, the non-dimensionalizing technique must always produce the correct scaling group. It must always produce correct scaling groups. And it might also be expected that this method should be applicable to a wide range of problems. Method should be applicable to a wide range of problems. And the techniques must be, in short, like it must be concise, correct and consistent. Technique must be concise, correct and consistent. Okay, so the technique of dimensional analysis should be concise, correct and consistent. So that is also written over here. Like dimensional analysis is a means of simplifying a physical problem by appealing to the dimensional homogeneity. Now, what is the dimensional homogeneity? Like in the dimensional analysis, we apply the concept of dimensional homogeneity. So, what is dimensional homogeneity? Dimensional homogeneity is the concept where dimensions of variables on both sides of equation are the same. If the units are the same, the dimension of each term must be the same. And every valid equation must be dimensionally homogeneous. If an equation is not dimensionally homogeneous, we simply say that equation is invalid. What does this mean that equation must be dimensionally homogeneous? It means that all additive terms on both sides of the equation must have same dimensions. So this is the dimensional homogeneity. So dimensional analysis is a means of simplifying a physical problem by appealing to dimensional homogeneity. Why? To reduce the number of relevant variables. As I have told earlier also, we always try to reduce the number of relevant variables. And one more thing is that, like, this is a pure mathematical technique, and it is to establish a relationship between physical phenomena by considering their dimensions. We consider their dimensions and we establish a physical relationship. So this is dimensional analysis. Next is the Buckingham Pi method. Actually, there are two methods of dimensional analysis. The number of dimensional variables can be reduced into a smaller number of dimensionless parameters by several methods. Commonly used two methods are, one is the Rayleigh's method and another one is the Buckingham's Pi theorem or Buckingham's Pi method. So here we will be discussing Buckingham's Pi method in detail. So what is the Buckingham's Pi method or what is the Buckingham's Pi theorem? A more generalized method of dimensional analysis. It is a more generalized method of dimensional analysis, and it was developed by E. Buckingham. Buckingham Pi theorem was developed by E. Buckingham and others, and it is most popular now. And what happens here? This arranges variables into a lesser number of dimensionless group of variables. This method arranges variables into lesser number of dimensionless group of variables. Now the question is why we call this Buckingham Pi method or Buckingham Pi theorem. Because Buckingham used pi term to represent the product of variables in each group, we call this method Buckingham Pi. So it is simply because he used pi term to represent the product of variables. So because of that we call this Buckingham's Pi method or Pi theorem. And according to this theorem, if there are n dimensional variables, like there are n dimensional variables, both independent and dependent, in a dimensionally homogeneous equation, and it is described by m fundamental dimensions, then they may be grouped in n minus m dimensionless groups. So we can group them in n minus m dimensionless groups. And Buckingham referred to this dimensionless groups as pi terms or pi groups. Now, what is the advantage of using this method? So, the advantage of this theorem is that one can predict number of dimensionless groups are to be expected. Like what happened in the Rayleigh's method, we were not able to predict how many number of dimensionless groups we'll be getting after thus solving the problem with the help of Rayleigh's method. But here we can predict at the beginning, because we always get n minus m number of pi terms, or you can say dimensionless groups, so we can easily predict. So what is written over here? Just a minute. If n is total number of variables in a dimensionally homogeneous equation containing m fundamental dimension, then they may be grouped in n minus m pi terms, as I told earlier also. We can write it as like function of phi f x1 x2 x3 dot xn is equals to 0. We can write like this. And functional relationship will be written as like phi pi 2 pi 3 and so on, pi n minus m is equals to 0. The final equation which we obtain is always in the form of like pi 1 is equals to function of pi 2 pi 3 and so on, pi n minus m is equal to 0. And most importantly, this method is suitable for the problems where number of variables are 4 or more than 4. And it is not applicable if n minus m is equals to 0. What happens, like number of pi terms is equals to n minus m. So if n minus m is equal to 0, that means there will be no pi terms. So we cannot apply this method for the problems where n minus m is equals to 0. So this method is not applicable if n minus m equals to 0. Alright. So what is the procedure which we follow in solving problems with the help of Buckingham's pi method? First of all, we list all the physical variables and we note down n and m. So what is this n and m? N is the total number of variables, both dependent and independent, and m is the total number of fundamental dimensions. Then we compute number of pi terms by n minus m. So there are n minus m pi terms. Then after we write the equation in functional form, like function of x1 x2 and so on is equals to 0. Then we write the equation in general form, and after that we select repeating variables, and it must have all m fundamental dimensions and should not form a pi among themselves. This is important point. It must have all the m fundamental dimension and should not form a pi among themselves. Then what happens? We solve each pi term for the unknown exponents by dimensional homogeneity. So again we apply the principle of dimensional homogeneity and we solve each of the term independently. So here I have taken an example problem to explain the concepts of Buckingham pi theorem, Buckingham pi method. So here I have taken dimensional analysis for forced convection. So on the basis of experience, it is concluded that forced convection heat transfer coefficient is a function of variables given below in the table. So on the basis of experiment, it is predicted that the forced convection heat transfer coefficient is a function of variables here given. Like first is the fluid density, symbol is of course rho, we all know, and dimension is ml minus 3. Mass by volume, mass has dimension m, volume has dimension L3, so it's simply ml minus 3. Next is the dynamic viscosity, symbol is mu, and the dimension is ml minus 1, t minus 1. Third is the fluid velocity, so the symbol is v of course, and dimension is LT minus 1. Fourth is the thermal conductivity with the symbol K and dimension MLT minus 3 theta minus 1. Here theta represents temperature term. Next is the specific heat with the symbol Cp and the dimension L2T. And last is the characteristic length with the symbol D and dimension L, of course. So these are the variables on which forced convection heat transfer coefficient depend. So we have listed here. In continuation to that, we can write heat transfer coefficient as H as a function of these variables, or we can just group them in a functional form like f of h rho mu v k cp and d is equals to 0. Here convective heat transfer coefficient is a dependent variable, h is the dependent variable, and the rest of are independent variables. So it is a dependent variable, convective heat transfer coefficient. So now, as per the procedure, we will find n minus m. So n is the total number of variables. So how many variables are there? H, rho, mu, v, k, cp and d. So total 7 variables are there. One is the dependent like heat transfer coefficient, and rest 6 are independent. Now we find number of fundamental variables used to describe these terms. So number of fundamental variables used is 4, as I would like to show you. So m is the first, then L, then T and then theta. So total 4 fundamental dimension used to describe these. So number of fundamental variable is 4. So according to Buckingham's pi theorem, number of pi terms is given by the difference of total number of variables and number of fundamental units. So number of pi terms will be n minus m, which is 7 minus 4, and that is 3, right? So now we will write these in terms of functional form. So these non-dimensional pi terms control the forced convection phenomena and are expressed as function of pi 1, pi 2, pi 3 and so on is equals to 0. So we have written down like this. Alright. So each pi term is written in terms of repeating variables and one another variable, and to select repeating variables, following method should be followed. So what is the procedure to select a repeating variable? So these are the steps which we should follow in order to select a repeating variable. Number of repeating variables should be equal to number of fundamental units involved in the physical phenomena. Again, number of repeating variables should be equal to number of fundamental units involved in the physical phenomena, and dependent variables should not be selected as repeating variables. So this is very important point, like dependent variables should not be selected as repeating variables. Next, the repeating variable should be selected in such a way that one of the variables should contain a geometric property. The repeating variable should be selected in such a way that one of the variables should contain a geometric property such as length, diameter or height. Another repeating variable should contain a flow property such as velocity, acceleration, and the third one should contain a fluid property such as viscosity, density, specific heat or specific weight also. So this is the way to select repeating variables. And next is the selected repeating variable should not form a dimensionless group. So this is very important point again. The selected repeating variables should not form a dimensionless groups. It should have some dimension. And the selected repeating variables together must have same number of fundamental dimensions. So again, the selected repeating variables together must have same number of fundamental dimensions. And one more important point is that no two selected repeating variables should have same dimension. Two selected variables cannot have same dimensions. They must have different dimensions. So two selected repeating variables should have no two selected variables should have same dimensions. Alright. And so on the behalf of that, we have selected following repeating variables. The first is the dynamic viscosity mu, having fundamental dimensions ml t minus 1. I think there are some mistakes over here. Some terms are missing. Sorry for that. Though I have already described the dimension of these terms here in this slide. Here. I think there is some problem. Dynamic viscosity mu having fundamental dimensions mlt minus 1. Thermal conductivity K having fundamental dimensions. So what is the fundamental dimension? It is mlt minus 3 theta minus 1. And fluid velocity V having fundamental dimensions lt minus 1. It should be lt minus 1. And characteristic length having fundamental dimension d. So each pi term is expressed as like pi is equals to mu k v d h. Mu is the dynamic viscosity, k is the thermal conductivity, v is the velocity, d is the characteristic length, and h is the heat transfer coefficient, forced heat transfer coefficient. Then we write down each term in above equation in terms of fundamental dimensions. So we'll write down the terms in terms of fundamental dimensions. So again, I think there are some mistakes here. Powers are missing. So now comparing the powers of m, we get 0 is equals to a plus b plus 1, or we can also write as a plus b is equals to minus 1. And next, when we compare the powers of L, we get what? Minus a plus b plus c plus d is equals to 0 here. Then when we compare the power of t, we get 0 is equals to minus a minus 3b minus c and minus 3. And on comparing the power of theta, we get 0 is equals to minus b minus 1. So we can write as b is equals to minus 1. B is equals to minus 1. Now when we substitute this value of b from equation 8 in equation 5, here is the equation 5, we get a is equals to 0. When we substitute value of a and b in equation 7 here, we get c is equals to 0. And when we substitute the value of a, b, c in equation 6, we get d is equals to 1. And after substituting value of a, b, c and d in equation 4, we get pi is equals to mu k v d h. So we get here pi is equals to h d by k, the first pi term. Second pi term is expressed as pi is equals to mu k v d and rho. Mu is the dynamic viscosity, k is the thermal conductivity, v is the velocity, d is the characteristic length, and rho is the density, of course. So again we do the same thing. We write down dimension of each terms and then we compare the powers. So again we compare the power from this, we get a plus b is equals to minus 1. And next we compare the power of L. So on comparing the power of L, we get 0 is equals to minus a plus b plus c plus d minus 3. Next we will compare the powers of t. So on comparison of the power of t, we get 0 is equals to minus a, minus 3b minus c. Next we will compare the powers of theta. So we get 0 is equals to minus b, or we can also write it as b is equals to 0. Now after substituting the value of b from equation 16 in equation 13, here this equation, we get a is equals to minus 1, which is equation 17. Then we substitute, we get the value of b is equals to 0 and a equal to minus 1. Now we will substitute value of a and b in equation 15 here. So we get c is equals to 1. Okay, here c equal to 1 we get. Then we substitute, we get the value of a and b and c. So we will substitute the value of a, b and c in equation 14 here. So we will get the value of t, which is 1. So in this way we get the value of each terms. A equal to minus 1, b equals to 0, c equals to 1 and d equal to 1 also. So in this way we get value of a, b, c and d. So in this way we get the values of a, b, c and d. Now we will substitute the values of a, b, c and d in equation 12. So what we will get? We will get pi 2 terms as mu raised to minus 1, k 0, v 1, t 1, rho. So we can write down as pi 2 term as pi 2 is equals to rho b d by mu. So this is pi 2 term. Okay, just erase it here, just 1 second. Okay, so this is pi 2 term. Now for the third term, we can express third term as pi 3 is equals to here mu raised to a, which is dynamic viscosity, k which is thermal conductivity power b, velocity power c, d characteristic length power d, and specific heat capacity, which is Cp. Then we again do the same thing. We write down the dimension of each of the terms and then we compare the powers. So on comparison of the power, what we will get? We will get, like if we compare the power of m, what we get? 0 is equals to, here it is 0 and here like you can see power a, which is, this is b. So a plus b is equals to 0. Now we compare the powers of the next term, which is L, and what we will get? We will get like 0 is equals to minus a plus b plus c plus d, and here it is 2. So this we get equation 22. Next we will compare the powers of t and we will get 0 is equals to minus a, minus 3b, minus c, minus 2. And last we will compare the powers of theta. So power of theta. So what we will get? B is equals to minus 1. Like there are no terms on LHS. In the RHS we have two terms, power minus b and minus 1. So we get b is equals to minus 1. Alright. Now we will substitute the values of b from equation 24 in equation 21 here. We will substitute the value of b from 24 to 21. What we will get? We get c is equals to 0. On substituting the value, we get c is equals to 0. Now substituting the value of a, b and c in equation 22, we get d is equals to 0. We get d is equals to 0. And substituting the values of a, b, c and d in equation 12, we get pi 3 term, and this is mu Cp by k, which is equation 27. Now we get all these 3 pi terms. So substituting the values of pi 1, pi 2 and pi 3 in equation 3, we get like function. We can write it as a function of pi 1, pi 2 and pi 3 is equals to 0. And we can also write it down like this. So when we list down this, we get a correlation, which is nu is equals to c. C is of course a dimensionless constant, re raised to a and pr raised to b. here I think there is a mistake. It should be in power here, this A and this B. So sorry for that mistake. So we get a correlation expressed in the form of nu is equals to C RE raised to A PR raised to B. What is this term nu, RE and PR? So actually these are the dimensionless groups. I'll discuss more about them in upcoming slides, but here nu is the Nusselt number actually, R is the Reynolds number and PR is the Prandtl number. So these are the dimensionless groups. We'll discuss more about these terms in upcoming slides. Okay. And the constants C and exponents A and B are determined through experiments. So here the constant C, this constant A and B, these are determined through experiments. Okay. So this is all about dimensional analysis with the help of Buckingham Pi theorem for the forced convection heat transfer coefficient. Now we will move on to the next topic, which is dimensionless groups. Okay. So first of all, what is dimensionless group? A dimensionless group is a combination of dimensional or dimensionless quantities having zero overall dimension. I am repeating again. A dimensionless group is a combination of dimensional or dimensionless quantities having zero overall dimension. So what are the different dimensionless groups which we use in heat transfer in general? There may be others also. The first one is the Reynolds number. Next is the Nusselt number. Third one is the Prandtl number. Next is the Grashof number, Rayleigh's number and Peclet numbers. So these are some common dimensionless numbers used in heat transfer. So I'll be discussing about them one by one each with the significance and their formula also. So the very first dimensionless number is the Reynolds number. So what is the Reynolds number? What is its definition? So Reynolds number is simply the ratio of inertial forces to viscous forces. And when we write it in terms of formula, so it can be expressed as RE, which is the notation for Reynolds number. It is equals to rho VL by mu. So what are these terms? RE is, as I told, it's the notation for the Reynolds number. Rho is the density, V is the velocity, L is the characteristic length, which is the linear dimension, and mu is the viscosity, of course. So now the question is, what is the significance of Reynolds number? Why we use it? Significance is that it is used to identify the nature of flow, like whether the flow is laminar or turbulent, we determine with the help of the Reynolds number. So this is the significance of Reynolds number. Next, next is the Nusselt number. So what is the Nusselt number? It is the ratio of convective heat transfer to conductive heat transfer. Again, it is the ratio of convective heat transfer to conductive heat transfer. So when we write in terms of formula, we can write it as nu is equals to HL by K. So nu is the notation for Nusselt number, H is the convective heat transfer coefficient, L is the characteristic length and K is the thermal conductivity. So when we write in terms formula, we can write like this. Now what is the significance of Nusselt number? Significance of Nusselt number is it describes the enhancement of heat transfer because of convection in comparison to conduction. Like in convection, heat transfer enhances, so this describes the enhancement of heat transfer because of convection in comparison to conduction. So this is the significance of So next is the Prandtl number. What is the Prandtl number? It is simply the ratio of momentum diffusivity to heat diffusivity. So we can write it as PR is equals to mu Cp by K, where PR is the notation for Prandtl number, mu is the dynamic viscosity, K is the thermal conductivity, and Cp is the specific heat. So this is Prandtl number. What is the significance of Prandtl number? Prandtl number is used to describe thermal boundary layer. The significance of Prandtl number is that it is used to describe thermal boundary layer. Next is the Grashof number. What is this? So it is the ratio of buoyancy force to viscous force. So Grashof number is the ratio of buoyancy force to viscous force. We can write it in terms of this, where Gr is the Grashof number. So here in this formula, G is the acceleration due to gravity, beta is the coefficient of thermal expansion, Ts is the surface temperature, T infinity is the fluid temperature far from the surface, and nu is the kinematic viscosity. What is the significance of Grashof number? It is used in flow analysis in natural convection. So the significance is that it is used in flow analysis in natural convection. Okay. Next is the Rayleigh's number. So what is the Rayleigh's number? So Rayleigh's number is the product of Grashof number and Prandtl number. Okay. So we have already discussed the formula for Grashof number and Prandtl number, so we can write down its formula also. Now what is the significance of Rayleigh's number? It is associated with buoyancy driven flow, and its value is used to characterize laminar to turbulent transition. Rayleigh's number is used to characterize transition from laminar to turbulent. Okay, so this is again a very important dimensionless group. And next is the Peclet number. What is Peclet number? So it is defined as the product of Reynolds number and Prandtl number. So it is product of two numbers, Reynolds number and Prandtl number. Here you can see. So when we put the formula, we get Lu divided by alpha. So P is the Peclet number, of course, L is the characteristic length, U is the velocity, and alpha is the thermal diffusivity. Alright, so what is the significance of Peclet number? Its significance is that it is used in calculations including convective heat transfer rate. It is used in calculation including convective heat transfer rate. Alright, so that's all about dimensionless groups. Next we'll see different types of convection flows. So classes of convective flows. So convection can be classified into two types: free or natural convection induced by buoyancy forces, and it may be forced convection induced by external means. Okay, it may occur with the phase change like boiling and condensation also. So common classifications are like, if we classify, so based on geometry we have external and internal flow. Here based on driving mechanism, if we classify based on driving mechanism, we have two types of flow again: natural convection, forced convection, and mixed convection also sometimes. Here if we classify based on number of phases, so we have two types of phases, like single phases and multi-phase. And if we classify based on types of flow, so we are having two types again. One is the laminar and another one is the turbulent. Alright, so first is free convection. It is also called as natural convection. So in this, fluid motion induced by buoyancy forces. In the free convection or natural convection, fluid motion is induced by buoyancy forces, and buoyancy forces arises when there are density gradients in the fluid, and body force proportional to density arises. And density gradient is due to temperature gradient, and body force gravity function of mass. So basic principle is that heavy fluid falls and light fluid rises, creating vortices. Here you can see the vortices. So what is the internal versus external flows? So free convection can be generated in duct or enclosure along a free surface. So in both internal and external case, free convection can interact with forced convection, or as it is also sometimes called mixed convection. So free boundary flow, it occurs in an extensive quiescent fluid, that is infinite motionless fluid, and no forced convection. It induces a boundary layer on a heated or cooled surface, and it can generate plumps and buoyant jets also. So first is the free convection for external flow. Only empirical relation exists for most real geometries, that is NUL, which is Nusselt number, is equals to HL by K. So immersed vertical plate like average Nusselt numbers, Churchill and Shaw correlation is there for laminar flows. RL is less than 10 to the power 9. So this is again the formula, that relation, and Churchill-Shaw correlation for all other flow regimes we have like this. NUL bar is equals to 0.825 plus 0.387 RL raised to 1 by 6 plus 1 plus 0.49 by PR 9 by 16 raised to 8 by 27 whole square. So these concepts are some advanced level concepts. Next is the free convection for external flow, both for inclined and horizontal plates. Buoyancy force is not parallel to plate, and horizontal perpendicular buoyancy force, inclined angle buoyancy force. So these are. So flow and heat transfer depend on thermal condition of plate, heated or cooled, orientation facing upward or downward. So it depends on various things. And here are some diagrams also to explain the concepts. Next is the free convection for external flow. Like for horizontal plates, this correlation for heated horizontal facing up and cooled horizontal facing down. So these are the relations. NUL is equal to 0.54 RL raised to power 1 by 4, which we can also write as 10 to the power 4. So RL should be between 10 to the power 4 to 10 to the power 7. One more thing to note, that the notations may be somewhat different. And for a cooled horizontal facing downwards, it is NUL is equals to, it's like this. So RL should be between 10 to the power 7 to 10 to the power 11. And this picture denotes these two. The first one is the heated horizontal facing up, and another one is the cooled horizontal facing down. Okay. Next is the correlation for heated horizontal facing down and cooled horizontal facing up. So for this, NUL is equals to 0.27 RAL raised to 1 by 4. So by this relation we get RAL between 10 to the power 5 to 10 to the power 10. So what is the L in release number? It is a characteristic length, simply. Sorry. So next is the free convection for external flow for inclined plates. So correlations are like for heated bottom face only and cooled top face only. Use immersed vertical plates correlation, Churchill and Shaw, but replacing G in the releases number by G cos theta. So we get this, and this denotes the correlation heated top face only and cooled bottom face only. Flow is three-dimensional and no correlations exist. Then for the long horizontal cylinder, so a release number based on diameter of isothermal cylinder, and Churchill and Shaw correlation for average Nusselt number. So we get this correlation. NUD is equals to 0.60 plus 0.387 RAT raised to 1 by 6 1 plus 0.559 by PR, 9 by 16 power 8 by 27 whole square. So in general we get RAD is less than 10 to power 12. Next, for the parallel plates, similar to internal forced convection, buoyancy induced boundary layers develop on both plates, and boundary layers can merge to generate fully developed flow conditions and insufficiently long and spaced channel. Otherwise the channel behave as two isolated plates. And channel often considered as vertical, theta is equals to 0, or it may be also considered as inclined. Inclined flows more complex and often result in three-dimensional flow. So this is the picture diagram. So for the vertical plates, fully developed criteria is this, and isolated plate the criteria is this. Okay. So parallel plates, vertical channels, both semi-analytical and empirical correlation exist. Symmetry, asymmetry of boundary conditions play a factor, and equal or unequal uniform surface temperature or uniform heat fluxes for both surfaces. So we get these for isothermal and isoflux. Next is the free convection for internal flow. Only empirical relations exist for most real geometries. Like enclosures, rectangular cavities characterized by opposing wall at different temperatures with the remaining walls insulated. Fluid motion characterized by induced vortices or rotating flow. Here you can see. So in this, release number is a function of distance between heated walls, and heat transfer across the cavity is this. Free convection for internal flow, enclosures and rectangular cavities. Actually these topics were not there in our part, but I have included these, so you can just go through this. So this is the correlation which we will get. Free convection for internal flow, like enclosures, rectangular cavities, horizontal, and heating from above, like tau is equals to 180 degree, and unconventionally thermally stable heat transfer due to solely conduction, annual is equals to 1. For enclosures, rectangular cavities which are vertical, so critical release number exists below the buoyancy forces and cannot overcome the viscous force. Okay. So RALF is equals to 10 to power 3 and RAL is equals to RALC, no induced fluid motion, and second one is for the induced fluid motion. If RAL is less than RALC, then means it is thermally stable and heat transfer due to solely conduction, annual is equals to 1. And if RALC is less than RAL, which is also less than 5 into 10 to power 4, that means it is thermally unstable. And heat transfer primarily due to induced fluid motion, and which is advection. So a primary flow cell is induced, secondary cell possible at largest release number. Free convection for internal flow, here we have different correlations. Okay, enclosures for rectangular cavities, for thermally unstable, and we have here free convection for internal flows, like enclosures, annular cavities, concentric cylinders, heat transfer across cavity, and these are some different formulas. So Kd is the effective thermal conductivity. Like thermal conductivity is stationary fluid would need to transfer the same amount of heat as a moving fluid. So we get this like RAC, one second, RAC is less than 10 to power 100, which is K effective by K equals to 1. Here 100 less than RAC less than 10 to power 7, so we get this relation. At last, the critical release number RAC is defined something like this. So this is all about like free convection, forced convection. In this we have discussed different methods and different types, like in the cylinders, flat surfaces, different types of flows like laminar and turbulent, external and internal flows, and all the other things related to this. So I hope that I have explained the concept well. So if there is any problem, sorry for that. So that's all from my side. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you so much for your attention, for listening. I hope that I have explained it well. So thank you very much. Thank you.